everybody. This is an Irish accent, so thank you for switching into English for me. It's great to be here. It's great to see so many faces in a real-life audience again, so I'm delighted to be here. My name is Rebecca Keenan. I'm the Global Head of Intelligent Automation with Expleo Group. I have been working in and around intelligent automation, and we've had lots of buzzwords throughout the last couple of years for my entire career. And I've seen a lot of shifts, a lot of changes in the industry. So today we're going to talk about one of those buzzwords that is out there now, hyperautomation. We're going to ask, what is it? What do you need to know? And maybe why people are talking about it. So to kick off with some stats, which is always a good place to start, 2.6 trillion hours of work are automated in the United States alone each year. Okay, that's an awful lot of automation deployments. It's also a lot of opportunity to automate. So I think that's an interesting number. 76% of senior personnel involved in digital transformation believe that automation is now a necessity and not a choice. So when I look at this stat, I think it really shows that most of us agree that automation is definitely needed. We need more of it. However, potentially there is a question of, well, how are we going to do it? And just to call out one more stat here, which is one of my preferred stats, as much as you can like a statistic, but 70% of workers believe that automation will offer opportunities to qualify for more highly skilled work. And why I think this is an important one is because, you know, over the years, I've seen a real shift in how people accept automation. I think a couple of years ago, teams might have, not been that happy to see an automation team come into the business. But I've really seen a shift in that of people wanting to, give that mundane, repetitive work over to robots or digital workforce, whatever you call it. So I think hopefully we'll keep seeing that statistic get bigger and bigger. And when I look at all of these stats and I look at all of the data that we have available to us, I think what's really clear is we all want to automate more. We all want to change how we work. And ultimately, we all want to change how we interact with our customers. And given that, we say hello to hyperautomation. So if we start at the beginning, which is usually a good place to kick off, let's look at the definition as is. Hyperautomation is a business-driven, disciplined approach that organizations use to rapidly identify, vet, and automate as many business and IT processes as possible. It involves the orchestrated use of multiple technologies, tools, and platforms. Okay, so what does that mean? Very simply put, when I think of hyperautomation, it's really a new way of thinking about how we do digital transformation. So it's very much a principle, a way of thinking. It's not just one technology. So how do we really automate everything we can and should across our entire organization? And when I say it's not just one technology, some of the things that we're working with on my team at the moment, robotic process automation, low code, chatbots, artificial intelligence, machine learning, ChatGPT, which I think we're all hearing absolutely lots about in the press at the moment. Again, it's taking all of these technologies that we have available to us and putting them against a process. So it's not just one tech that we need anymore, it's multiple. And if I think of some of the projects that my team are working on at the moment, we have a client where we're combining automation and predictive analytics to increase the efficiency of supply chain. So getting things from A to B quicker. We have clients who are using chatbots to help their staff retrieve information from multiple different data sets, and then using RPA to action something in the background. And quite a lot of what we're seeing is moving RPA, artificial intelligence, low code into the contact center. So how can we get more efficient working with our customers? And really, I think what you might start picking up from these examples is to really solve problems today in businesses. It's not just one tech anymore that we need, as easy as that would be. It's this combination. And all of these projects are really embracing technology, they're embracing process optimization, they're embracing change, and really big idea thinking. So if you look at the definition a little bit more, Expleo have kind of pulled out some words that have really driven how we now run our hyperautomation projects, or whatever you want to call it. But if we start at the top with Hyper, Hyper Hype is a blog that I've written before, and maybe it is, but again, when we think of the hyper element of what we're doing, we want to think speed and scale. So to stay competitive today in the market, not just with your customers, but with your employees as well, COVID has changed how all of us work. We want to automate as much as we can, as quick as we can. So again, that's where the hyper element comes into play. Business driven. This is probably why people are talking about hyperautomation, intelligent automation, insert how your organization refers to it. But ultimately, with all technology deployments, whatever you call it, there has to be a return on investment. There has to be something that we're giving back to the business. And when I look at the deployments that we've been able to really put into production for our clients, we have saved hundreds of millions of euros. We have delivered thousands of hours back to organizations. We've made them more compliant. We've really changed for the better, I believe, how people are working. And ultimately, these are benefits that we've heard about for a long time with automation. But when we switch into this, larger scale thinking about it, the benefits get bigger as well. Disciplined, again, an important one. And I think, you have to ask yourself, and when you're speaking to your teams, how do you not stifle innovation? You absolutely want everyone excited. You want people trying tools out that are available, but you also need to make sure it's done in a controlled way. I'm up here saying we need to work across lots of teams and lots of tech stacks and lots of processes. We need to make sure that that's being done in a robust way, a secure way, and really make sure that, we're not causing any issues, essentially, when we're building all of this. So again, being disciplined is really important when we're thinking of this idea. Identify and vet. This really refers to your processes. And what I will say here is I can't overestimate or overstate to you how important understanding your processes is when it comes to the shift in thinking about how we're deploying automation at scale. Because we can have all the fancy technology in the world available to us, we can spend lots of money on the latest tool that's out there, but if we're not actually putting it against processes that make sense, we're not going to see any return on investment. So again, having a full understanding of your process landscape, upstream and downstream ramifications of maybe what tech will do is super, super important. As many as possible. Going back to that hyper element of what we're talking about, we want to get out of this idea of siloed approaches to automation. And some of you might be sitting here and you're thinking about your own organizations, and maybe you have really good finance automation, or maybe it's really good in the HR team, but your IT function or a different part of your organization hasn't actually deployed anything at scale. And again, that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to really step away from this siloed approach of departmental success and make it bigger, go right across the organization. And then just last here to call out orchestrated. Like so many things that we do in life, having a plan typically makes it a little bit smoother. So you want to make sure that you have that vision in play. So really, when I think about hyperautomation as a concept, and again, we'll go back to it being a concept, it's really a change in mindset for you, for your people. How can we shift our thinking away from individual success with individual process and bring it bigger? So if we think about going from project view to hyperautomation as a principle, let's look at that for a couple of minutes, looking at kind of mindset, visibility, scope, and pathway. Again, think of hyperautomation almost as a catalyst for change within your organization. So if we start with mindset, to go back to the hype element, we want to think bigger. We want to get out of individual teams and departments doing individual successes. Not that that's not still very important, and we do want to see that success throughout organizations. However, we want to think bigger. We want to not only look at individual points in a process, we want to see, okay, well, how are we going to go right across the business? Because quite often the processes within our organizations don't sit with just one team. So how are we going to actually broaden the scope of what we're thinking about in terms of delivery. If you look at visibility, again, I think what's really important moving into this new era where we have so much advanced technology available to us, we want it to be visible, we want it to be accessible. I think, again, looking away from only having tech and the tech platforms available maybe to, your very tech-savvy teams. You absolutely need those people engaged and building your solutions, but you want to look across your entire business. Typically, we're spending quite a lot of money on platforms, professional services, training. If we have all of this great ability available to us through our technology platforms, we want to make it accessible, not just to certain teams, but to all teams. And to do that, we need to make those successes a lot more visible throughout the organization. Scope, again, heading back to my favorite hyper word here, think big, think scale, think speed. We want to step outside of the individual. And just a quick example I have here, or my team, I should say, was working with the client on an automating an onboarding process for employees. And when we first started the project, the main success criteria was to automate contract creation. So if we could, get those contracts automated, we were going to get paid at the end of the day, and it was going to be a success. And maybe not quick enough, but we said, okay, an employee onboarding into an organization is a lot more than just signing a contract. So actually the solution we ended up deploying was not just the automation of contract creation, we also automated the process for finance of putting them onto payroll, and we automated the IT processes to get them access to some of those standard systems that they need. So all of a sudden, we looked outside of just the individual department we were working in, and we had automated more of an end-to-end process. And it's a simple example, but hopefully shows that that's what we're trying to get to with this multi-technology, multi-process layer of automation. And then just to kind of close out this part of project to principle, I want to talk a little about pathway. And by pathway, I mean, how are we getting to solutions? I think it would be remiss of us to sit in this room and say and agree, I think, that we've all this new technology available to us. We've all this fun, exciting tech coming out daily, it feels like sometimes. So if we are going to implement all this new technology, why would we not in turn also implement new ways of working? And I think that's a really important point here. How do we get from discovering a problem to solution? And I think our teams potentially need to become a little bit more diverse. How are we bringing different talent sets around the table? How are we actually diversifying who's at the table to determine the best solution? Again, we want to really have free experimentation and allow our people to try things. Again, not stifling that innovation, but keeping it a little bit controlled. We don't want to break anything or end up in the papers for the wrong reason. So again, it's an important thing to consider. How are your teams actually deploying these solutions? And not to be too dramatic, but hyperautomation as a principle, I do believe, has the ability to really change everything we do. It's looking away from just one type of tech and one type of solution, and even just one type of talent in our workforces. We really have an opportunity now to shift the gear on how we do things. And just some of the things that I've called out here. So, encouraging reskilling and lateral learning. Not to mention the C word, COVID, too much, but we have all, I think, shifted how we work. The expectations of our workforce has changed, and I'm really seeing more of a want to move the boring, the mundane, the repetitive into a digital workforce and really help our people reskill, relearn, figure out how their career progression looks in today's world. And I think hyperautomation as a principle gives people that opportunity. Keeping up with digital natives and citizen developers, always an interesting conversation when we want to try to keep a little bit of control in our IT programs. But if we look at our workforces, typically they're made up of humans, for the moment anyway. I don't think we're going anywhere too soon. But again, if we have multi-generational workforces, we have people who are more experienced, we have people coming out of college. Again, how are we making technology accessible and available to everyone on that spectrum? And I think that's a responsibility of, the leaders in this room, a little bit of our responsibility to make sure we're bringing people on this journey. And then just the last one, which, is key to automation, making sure we're delivering good experiences. And again, looking at it both ways, not just about your end customer and how they're interacting with your business, which is always important, but how are we keeping our people engaged? How are we making their jobs better? Because not just our customers, it's not competitive just in that realm of things. We also have a war on talent at the moment. So how are we making our people more efficient and happier? So I'm obviously talking big ideas here. It's a little bit of best case scenario if we get to this nirvana of hyper-automation at scale in your organization. But if I bring it back a little bit, how we have kind of come up with the way of thinking about it is the hop, the skip, and the jump, which definitely oversimplifies it for the sake of me standing up here on a stage in front of you. But ultimately, it's really about thinking of where you are today, the reality of where your organization is. Where do you want to be in 12 months, and then where do you want to be beyond that? So if we look at the hop, that's, most of us in this room are probably there. We've started automation in some degree. We might not have scaled it yet. We might not have gone right across the organization, but, we've made a start. That's what we're referring to as the hop in Expleo. We then have the skip. This is about bringing more intelligence into the digital workforce. How do we add, the nice big word, artificial intelligence? How do we bring NLP into our chatbots? How do we move from that mundane into the more advanced? And what I will say here is a lot of the technology platforms are really helping us do that. There's a lot to name, but we have Microsoft and the Power Platform, UiPath, Prism, Automation Anywhere. A lot of these platforms are making it a lot easier and a lot more accessible to do this and take that skip away from not the uneasy, but the rules-based into the intelligent. And then the jump, and this jump might be bigger for some of us than others, but this is the concept of, that final step in your transformation. I'm not sure any of us will get there, and if we do, I think a few of us might be out of jobs. But essentially, when I talk of this jump, I mean this idea, this vision that we're going for, that is, all of our processes, our people, our platforms connected, talking to each other, learning from each other, and creating value, essentially. So really to switch it to, well, if you're going back to your teams in the morning or after this conference and you're saying, how are we going to start looking at this? I've just pulled out a couple of things that, you have to consider moving forward. So first of all, data. Data is king, or data is queen, I should say. And it really is important to trust your data, have a single source of the truth. I was on a project last week and I got my fancy Power BI reporting, and it looked beautiful, but I did not trust it. I did not know where the data was coming from. And again, if we can't trust what the data is telling us, it's going to make it a lot more difficult to embrace this technology. Automation technologies, really important. I think from a practical standpoint, a lot of our organizations today already have a lot of tech platforms. We're probably spending a lot of money on things already available to the business. So as a starting point, I really encourage having a look across your business. What are you already investing in? Do we need to fill the gaps? How are we going to fill the gaps? And maybe do we need to retire some of these systems? Nothing says we need to keep them just because we had them in the past. Strategy. Again, going back to that concept and idea that having a plan typically helps what we're doing. But there's a lot of leaders in this room. I think that strategy has to come top down for a transformation that's as large as we're talking here. So how are you going to actually create a vision for the future while very much being planted in your reality of today? What does delivery look like for you today? And it's different for everybody. And how are we going to move forward? Culture. I could talk about this one for quite a while. I'll try not to, given my time limits today. But again, I think there's a real disconnect between culture of organizations and technology enablement. Because, like I said, for all the fancy tech in the world that we have available to us, if we don't have people using it correctly to the best of its ability, we're not going to see any return of investment. We're not going to see that, multi-million euro saving coming into the business. So it's really important to create new ways of working, to create teams of people who feel safe to try things, to potentially fail, but to learn from them, to really, embrace this idea that we're now solving problems in a different way, and that's okay, and we'll help you get there. Process. I've said it before in this talk, I'll say it again, super key moving forward. A lot of projects that we're doing at the moment, it's starting with a Lean Six Sigma team, it's starting with our business analysis. How do we understand our processes to the best of our ability to make sure that we're actually putting the right technology on it? Even questions like, when do you optimize? Before, during, after automation, everything is right, I think. I'm a big fan of let's just automate as quick as we can, get benefits and figure it out as we go, but not every process will be able to follow that. And then finally, people. And it ties into that culture element, but truly I do still think people are the hearts of our organization. A little cliche maybe of me to say sitting up here as the global head of intelligent automation, but really people and how we embrace the human talent along with the digital talent that we have available to us is going to be key moving forward. And I think if you can fully embrace not just your tech stacks, but your people as well, that's going to be the differentiator between how successful you can be. So I think just to start wrapping up, we can probably all agree that change is rarely easy, particularly when it has the ability to change the status quo of what we do and how we do it. But I fully believe, based on everything I've seen, that embracing this concept and idea of hyperautomation is fully worth it. Hyperautomation not only has the ability to solve the problems that you have today, but it frees up your people to create the business of tomorrow. So really, with clear strategy, with automation technologies, rich data, and an organization that is fully engaged in things like this, I think you can really create a difference to what you're doing. You can have a business that is efficient and operational, and you can have your people doing your best work. In Expleo, we like to refer to that as hyper for business, calm for you, calm for me, calm for everyone involved. On that, I want to say thank you very much for your time and listening to my accent today. My details are on the screen. You can find more information by searching Hyperautomation with Expleo. I'm also going to be around for the day, so please come say hi. But on that, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, our data process queen, Dr. Keenan. And excuse our Austrian accent.
I'm in your country.
Okay, so just one question. You've mentioned, as every technology project, there's a tech stack and a human stack. And looking at the projects regarding process automation, how large is the human stack in your work with your clients?
In terms of the tech we have available, or
in terms of the challenge.
The challenge, it can be large. Don't get me wrong. I think when we start thinking about stepping outside of normal, we start looking at even optical character recognition, so document understanding. I've yet to come across an easy project that's OCR. No matter how many we do, my team get a little stressed out if I just tell them they're going on to one of them. So it can definitely be difficult, but I think a key element again is so many of our organizations have this technology available already. We're paying for it, but it's how do we take advantage of it? And sometimes it's just about starting small and going from there and filling the gaps as you need to, turning on tools as you need to. It's not a race, we can all move at whatever speed is correct for our organization, and that's the correct speed.
So that's a challenge you can handle, and that's why there are specialized companies like Expleo, which are looking at all those topics, technology and product neutral.
Yeah, and again, I'll just say that it's that diversification of teams. So when I look at the talent, I'm a little biased, but I think I have one of the most talented automation teams on the globe, but biased. But it's developers, it's change managers, it's project managers, testers, product owners. We're creating teams that are different potentially to what organizations are used to, because we have to create new ways of thinking. We have to diversify the people around the table. So again, it's a really important aspect that takes us slightly away from the technology of it all, but I think to fully embrace tech, you need to fully embrace people as well.
Okay, last question. What about the companies in Ireland? Are they more technology affine, more likely to use and to try new technologies than in other countries in Europe?
Good question.
It depends, huh?
It depends. I would say probably in Ireland, we have been a little bit behind on some of the larger scale deployments that I've seen maybe across Europe and across the United States. We're definitely catching up. We have a lot of people now, and again, that's why it's important to understand where you are in your journey, because, you know, I have part of my team doing large scale data predictive analytics projects, and we have other clients where we're building their first ever RPA robot, and we do everything in between. So it depends, the industry depends on, it's not so much the country, but definitely industry as well of what we're trying to do.
Same here in Austria.
Yeah.
Okay. Where can we find you at your booth the next 2 days? Where is it?
We are just by the front door, by the front entrance, big purple.
Yeah.
Lots of calmness around us. We'll have popcorn. Rumor has it we have some champagne for later on as well, so do come say hi.
Champagne, not bad. Yeah. Other booths just have beer. Yeah. Okay. Looking forward to oncoming talks. Thank you again, Rebecca Keenan,
Thank you.
for coming to Vienna for your nice visit.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.